There comes a moment in every seeker's life when the questions shift from the outer to the inner. Not what must I do to succeed, but why am I here at all? That moment, my friend, is sacred. You see, many lifetimes pass like the wind unnoticed, unremembered. But some souls, some of you, are approaching the final stretch of your journey. And this is not my idea, this is the teaching of Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. He said, by identifying these 9 cues, you acknowledge that you are progressing into the final segment of your life cycle. Now this is not something to fear, it is something to honor. Let us walk together through these 9 spiritual signs, not as a checklist, but as reflections of mirrors that may reveal who you truly are beneath this skin, this story, this moment in time. Let us begin. Sign 1. You no longer fit in and you're at peace with I. In my younger years, I would sit in the monastery gardens and wonder why I felt so foreign in crowds. I tried to belong, studied harder, laughed louder, but inside, I was yearning for something deeper. Now I understand, when your soul has reached a certain ripeness, the world begins to feel less like a destination and more like a passage. You don't crave applause. You crave truth. You walk away from noise not out of disdain but because silence has finally become your friend. If this is you, know that you are not broken, you are free. Sign 2. You're drawn to simplicity like a moth to light. I once traveled to a city so grand it glittered even at midnight. But I found myself sitting beside a beggar, sharing rice cakes, smiling in silence. And it was in that simplicity that I felt the divine. Complexity is the game of younger souls, but simplicity is the poetry of the old soul. You begin to strip away, not out of lack but out of clarity. Have you begun decluttering not just your room, but your life? Then you are listening to the quiet wisdom of your soul. Sign 3. Pain awakens rather than destroys you. I no longer ask, why me, but rather, what is this teaching me? Even heartbreak, betrayal, and loss become teachers in disguise. I lost a dear brother in the Sangha once. For weeks, I wept, but in his absence, I heard the words he never spoke, and in my pain, I discovered a gentleness that changed me forever. When you are nearing the end of your cycle, pain no longer becomes punishment, it becomes purification. Sign 4. Time feels less real, and eternity becomes intimate. There are mornings I wake and forget what day it is, not because I am confused, but because time has stopped being a ruler and started becoming a river. You may have noticed this. 2. Days blur, but moments become sharp. A child's laughter, the flutter of a bird, the breath between 2 words. This is not forgetfulness, it is remembrance. You are remembering what it feels like to be eternal. Sign 5. You forgive without needing an apology. There was a man who wronged me many years ago. He never said sorry, but one day, during meditation, I saw him as a frightened child, wounded by his own past. And just like that, I let it go. When you no longer carry old weights, not because someone asked, but because your heart is ready. That is not weakness, that is evolution. You realize no one truly wins when another suffers. And in that realization, you step closer to liberation. Sign 6. You teach without trying. Perhaps strangers open their hearts to you. Perhaps your presence soothes without effort. You may be a healer, not by profession but by presence. This is a sign. When your energy speaks before your words, your soul is remembering its sacred assignment. I've met people who say, I don't know why, but I feel calm around you. To that I say your soul is shining through, and souls recognize each other, even when minds do not. Sign 7. You are drawn to nature over noise. The older I become, not in age, but in awareness, the more I find joy in the rustling of leaves, the rhythm of rain, the stillness of a mountain. Do you find peace in places others overlook? Then your soul is simplifying its taste, returning to where it began. The earth becomes more than a place, it becomes a presence, a whisper from the divine. Sign 8. You no longer fear death, you respect it. Let me share something. When I was a child, death terrified me. Now, I see it as the great exhale after a long breath of life, not an end, but a return. If you've begun to see death as a transition, not a tragedy, then you are living from the soul, not the self. And in that view, life becomes more precious, not less. Sign 9. You feel a deep pull toward purpose even if you can't name it. Perhaps you feel it right now, a silent magnet pulling you toward something vast, not a job, not a title, but a truth. You may not know what it is yet, but it is there, a pulse beneath the noise. A calling not to do more but to become more. That, my dear friend, is the soul remembering its final task. If these signs have stirred something within you, know this, you are not alone on this path. You are walking alongside countless others who are awakening. And though this may be your final life in this form, it is not the end, it is the beginning of wholeness. Now, take a deep breath and sit with this. If you knew this was your final cycle, how would you choose to live from this moment on? Let that question walk with you today. And in the next part of our journey, we will go even deeper into soul contracts, karmic closure, and the final liberation that awaits the awakened one. Welcome back, dear soul. If you are here now, it means something within you has been awakened. A remembering, a quiet recognition as we continue our journey. I invite you not to rush through these words. Let them settle. Let them echo. In page 1, we explored the 9 signs that suggest a soul nearing the completion of its earthly cycle, as taught by Edgar Cayce. But now, we go deeper not into signs, but into the structure of the soul's journey. We explore the mysteries of soul contracts, the unfinished business of karma, and the inner work that leads to final liberation, the hidden agreement, understanding. Soul contracts. Before you were born, before you took your first breath, you chose this life. Not the details, perhaps not the face, the place, or the name, but the lessons, those you chose with intention. A soul contract is not a punishment. It is a sacred agreement between your higher self and the universe to meet certain people, to face specific challenges, to heal old wounds. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who loved us deeply in a prior existence, who volunteered to play a difficult role so you could grow. When I first learned this, I wept. I thought of those who had betrayed me, and instead of anger, I felt gratitude, not for their actions but for the awakening they sparked. Have you noticed certain relationships that feel heavier than others, patterns that repeat? People you can't forget. That is the thread of a contract pulling you back toward resolution. To complete your cycle, you must meet your contracts with consciousness, not resentment, not denial, but clarity, forgiveness, and sometimes the release. Karma isn't punishment, it's precision. Let us clear a common confusion. Karma is not a judge. It does not punish you, it balances you. Imagine your soul as a stone dropped into a still pond. Every action, thought, and word creates ripples. Karma is the return of those ripples. In one lifetime, you may be the wounded, in the next, the healer, in another, you are both. I remember a young monk who arrived in our monastery many years ago. He was angry, rebellious. One day, in tears, he asked me, "Why is life so unfair?" I said to him, "Life is not unfair, it is exact. Every scar is a note in the song of your return to harmony." He left the monastery a few years later, but I heard from him recently. He had become a nurse, quiet, gentle, dedicated. And I smiled. The stone had rippled, and now the water was still again. To transcend karma, we must see it, not as shame, but as feedback. When you recognize your reactions, patterns, and pains as mirrors, you step out of the loop and into the light, the shadow self, embracing what you've hidden. Many spiritual seekers make one mistake. They aim only for light. They avoid the shadow, but wholeness requires the embrace of all parts. The final life cycle is not one of perfection. It is one of integration, of sitting with your fears, your guilt, your doubts, and saying, "I see you, you are part of me, but you no longer lead me." In my own journey, I struggled with pride, even in the monastery. I wanted to be seen as wise, as pure, but that was the ego disguised in robes. It wasn't until I admitted that even as a monk I still carried attachments that true humility began. The soul nearing completion no longer seeks to be perfect. It seeks to be authentic. What are you still hiding from yourself? What do you avoid in silence? There lies your key, the call to sacred service. As the soul matures, its longing shifts from success to service. It no longer asks, "What can I gain?" but "How may I give without losing myself?" You may feel this too, a pull toward helping others, but not from guilt, not from fear. From knowing that every act of kindness ripples beyond lifetimes. The final soul is not loud. It moves in stillness, a smile, a hand on a shoulder, a word that suits at the right moment. These are not small things, they are the language of completion. Returning to stillness, the space between lives. Let me share something personal. In a deep meditation many years ago, I slipped beyond the veil, not into sleep, but into what I can only describe as a luminous pause. There was no name, no body, just awareness and peace. That space between incarnations, it is not empty. It is sacred, a time of review, renewal, rest. When your soul nears its final life, it begins to feel that peace now while still embodied. Moments of timelessness, dreams of flying, waking up with wisdom you didn't study. These are not coincidences. They are previews, glimpses of your soul's true home. So what now? Now that you've begun to remember, you cannot go back to sleep. This is your invitation to forgive more quickly, to speak more gently, to walk with less noise and more presence. Not because you're better than others, but because you've walked through many fires to get here. You are not at the end. You are at the edge of becoming. Let us honor that together. Sit with this tonight. What am I still carrying that is no longer mine? What am I still seeking that I already am? Ask this not with pressure, but with peace. The answers will come not in words, but in knowing. And in our next gathering, we will explore how to complete unresolved karma, how to step into your soul's true assignment, and how to prepare the heart for the return to Source. Your journey is unfolding perfectly. Let us meet again in the stillness between now and forever. Welcome once again, my dear traveler of light. You've returned not just here, but deeper into your own remembering, and for that, I bow to you. You see, this journey isn't about collecting signs or mastering concepts. It's about becoming still enough to hear the truth that has always whispered within. If you are truly nearing the end of your life cycle, not in terms of death, but in terms of reincarnational return, then this part of the path, what we enter today, is both the most sacred and the most challenging. Because here, we speak of completion. Chapter 1, The Art of Releasing What Is No Longer Yours. Completion doesn't mean perfection. Completion means freedom, freedom from cycles, freedom from attachment, freedom from seeking what you already are. Many souls keep reincarnating because they cling to identities that no longer serve them. Let me tell you a story. There was a monk named Surya who lived in silence for 12 years. He thought silence alone would free him. But when he returned to the village, a man insulted him harshly. Surya trembled with rage. You see, the silence had suppressed his anger but not transformed it. Completion doesn't come from suppression, it comes from transmutation. To release what is no longer yours, ask yourself, what am I defending? What do I fear losing? If your answer is my identity, my pride, my history, then it's time to lay those garments down. You were never meant to carry all of this into your final awakening. Chapter 2, The Mirror of Relationships. And of the clearest signs that your soul is nearing closure is how your relationships begin to shift. You no longer seek drama, you no longer fight to be right. You stop chasing people to complete you. Instead, you begin to see every relationship, every difficult parent, partner, or friend as a sacred reflection. In my own life, there was a teacher I once resented. He was cold, distant, demanding. For years, I judged him, but then one day, in meditation, I asked, why does he disturb me so? The answer came, because he mirrored your own fears of inadequacy. He wasn't my enemy, he was my invitation. So I forgave him, not because he asked for it, but because my soul required it. Relationships are the mirrors we are given to see ourselves. And as your cycle nears its final return, you must stop trying to change the mirror and begin to clean the reflection. Chapter 3, Burn the Scripts You Were Assigned. Society gave you many roles: child, student, worker, spouse, parent, but these are costumes, not essence. The final soul must remove the masks one by one, and in doing so, it must confront the fear of emptiness. A student once asked me, but if I let go of all the roles, who am I? I smiled and said, you are the space they existed in, you are the awareness behind the performance, you were never your story. You are the stillness beneath the story, and when you burn the scripts, you make room for truth to arise on its own. Chapter 4, Embracing Sacred Aloneness. Loneliness is not loneliness. It is the sacred solitude where ego dissolves and the soul remembers its origin. In the final phase of your soul cycle, you may feel a sudden urge to retreat, to walk in nature more, to enjoy your own company, to seek silence instead of noise. Do not resist this pull. Do not interpret it as isolation. It is not rejection from the world. It is a reunion with the self. It is in that sacred aloneness that divine guidance returns, and it is in that space where your spirit whispers, you are nearly home. Chapter 5, The Call to Simplicity. As you ascend through your lifetimes, you may notice you no longer desire complexity. You begin to simplify not just your possessions, but your thoughts, your habits, your speech. This too is a sign. A soul nearing its final turn no longer hoards, it no longer performs. It no longer collects trophies, nor arguments, nor admiration. Instead, it becomes light. I met an old woman once in the Himalayas. She had nothing but a scarf and a smile, but when she spoke, her words felt like prayers. I asked her, what do you know that others don't? She laughed gently and said, I know what I no longer need. Simplicity is the language of the awakened. Declutter your life not out of guilt, but to make room for grace. Chapter 6, Feeling the Dissolve of Timion. Of the subtlest but clearest signs that your soul is nearing the final cycle is that time begins to feel strange. You may lose track of it, dreams feel more vivid. You might remember things that never happened in this life, or meet people who feel anciently familiar. This is not confusion, it's convergence. Your past lives, your future potential, your present moment, they are all folding into one sacred now. Linear time is a tool of the body, but the soul dances in spirals when time begins to blur. Do not fear, you are not fading, you are merging. This is how it feels to come home. So breathe with me once more. Feel this moment not as a thought, but as a temple. What you are seeking is already within you. And as we prepare to step into the next page of this sacred unfolding, remember, you are not just remembering a truth, you are becoming it. Let go, let be. And let's continue this beautiful walk deeper, quieter, more whole. In the next chapter, We will explore how to consciously complete karma, how to align with your soul's highest assignment, and how to prepare not for death but for liberation. You've come so far, dear one. Let us continue. Together, you've walked with me this far, not just through these words, but through lifetimes of remembering. And now, as we cross the fourth threshold, we arrive at one of the deepest truths. The soul is not seeking to escape life, it is seeking to complete its participation in illusion. Completion is not withdrawal, it is fulfillment. And so, as we begin again today, breathe in not just air, but awareness. Because what we are about to explore can only be heard by a heart that is truly ready. Chapter 1. Consciously completing karma. Karma is not punishment. It is not reward. It is simply echo. When you throw a stone into water, ripples form. Karma is those ripples returning, reflecting, reminding. But what if you realized that you could end the ripple? What if you didn't need to react? What if you stopped clinging to the outcome? In my early years, I once harshly judged a fellow monk. He was loud, impatient, and always late for morning prayer. I resented him, though I never said it. Years later, I met someone just like him in a different temple, and again, I felt the irritation rise. That's when I knew it wasn't him, it was the karmic thread in me that remained uncut. So I began to sit with the discomfort, to understand it, to meet it with gentleness. Eventually, the judgment dissolved. That's how karma ends. Not when you change the world, but when you stop echoing back its noise. Chapter 2. Aligning with your soul's highest assignment. Many people ask me, how do I know I'm on the right path? The answer is this: you are not here to find your purpose, you are here to remember it. And your true soul assignment is never based on status, fame, or validation. It's based on service. Not always service to others, but service to truth. Ask yourself, what work makes me forget time? What presence makes me feel like I've returned home? What silence awakens my joy? These questions are not puzzles, they are portals. Your soul's highest assignment may be raising a child with gentleness, or tending a garden with devotion, or healing ancestral wounds quietly within yourself. Do not measure your value by what the world applauds, measure it by what eternity remembers. Chapter 3. When you no longer fear death. This may surprise you. One of the final signs that your soul is approaching the last turn of its cycle is that death no longer frightens you. It's not that you wish for it, it's that you no longer run from it. In the cave of my teacher, we once sat in stillness for days, meditating on impermanence. He asked me, can you greet death as a friend and not a thief? At first, I resisted, but slowly I began to see that everything in nature dies without fear. The tree sheds its leaves. The river returns to the sea, the sun disappears only to rise again. Death is not the end of you, it is the undoing of what you are not. When the fear of death leaves you, what remains is pure life. Chapter 4. Dissolving into the universal self. As the ego fades, something miraculous begins to occur. You start to sense the dissolving of boundaries, not just physical but personal, emotional, mental. You begin to realize the others are also you. You smile at a stranger and tears well in your eyes. You hear a child laugh and it feels like your own joy. You witness injustice and your heart trembles with action. This is not hypersensitivity, this is soul sensitivity. When the universal self awakens in you. There was a woman in Kerala who cared for lepers no one else would touch. When I asked her why she did it, she said, I saw my own soul in their suffering. When the veil of self thins, you no longer need to try to be good, you simply are. This is the beginning of divine embodiment. Chapter 5. The final gift. The capacity to be fully present. This is the 9th and final sign, and perhaps the most important. You stop rushing, you stop reaching, you begin to be, not as a discipline, but as a joy. You listen with your full attention, you walk without destination. You drink tea as though it were a sacred ceremony. You no longer seek moments, you become them. Presence is the signature of an awakened soul. It is the final gift before liberation. A butterfly doesn't strive to become beautiful, it simply lives. In the fullness of the moment it inhabits. And so to must you, this is not the end, it is the arrival. So now, dear traveler, you know the 9 cues. Not as superstitions, but as invitations. You are not broken, you are not behind, you are awakening. And perhaps you are nearing the end of your earthly cycle, but do not hurry. There is nothing to force. Live with reverence, walk with intention, speak with kindness, and love with abandon. For in doing so, you do not just prepare for the end, you complete the beginning. You have returned, and with your return, the circle nears completion. You've walked with me through 9 sacred signs, you've listened with your heart, not just your ears. And now, as we enter the final stretch of this journey, we do not look outward, we look inward. What comes next is not more knowledge, but a deepened knowing. Today, I will not give you more signs. Instead, I will offer integration, reflection, and the remembering of why you came here at all. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The soul's true intention. Before you were born, before breath, name, family, or form, you made a choice to experience not just success or joy, but heartbreak, betrayal, illness, and grief. Why? Because only through contrast can consciousness expand. And yet, you did not come to suffer endlessly, you came to wake up in the middle of it. The final stage of the soul's return is not in learning more, but in remembering the vow you made. That vow was not to achieve, it was to evolve, to be the quiet light in a loud world, to love where others would fear, to forgive where others would blame. And now, if you are hearing this, it means the vow is ready to be fulfilled. Chapter 2. The sacred act of remembering. Many seekers ask, how do I know I'm fulfilling my soul contract? The answer is both simple and profound. When you remember who you were before the world told you who to be, that remembering often begins with stillness. A return to childhood joy, a reconnection with nature, an unexpected tear, a dream that feels older than this life. These are breadcrumbs on the path back home. I once spoke with an old woman who cried during sunrise. She told me she had no idea why, but I knew her soul remembered the light. You see, remembering is not always grand, it's gentle, quiet, intimate. Let every moment of peace you feel be a sacred clue. It is not random, it is recognition. Chapter 3. The world will not understand, and that's okay. You will reach a point in this sacred cycle where the world around you no longer feels like your reflection. You may feel out of place, quiet at loud parties, disinterested in arguments, unattached to titles, trends, or applause. Let me tell you, beloved soul, this is not a sign of disconnection. It is a sign of deep realignment. When a snake sheds its skin, it becomes vulnerable. When a soul sheds its worldly attachments, it too becomes exposed, but only for a time. Eventually, you will find others who speak your language, the language of stillness, of truth, of essence. Until then, walk alone, if needed, for the path back to source is often a solitary one. Not because you are unloved, but because the final steps require silence. Chapter 4. True compassion emerged when you near the final cycle of this earthly walk. You no longer love to get something, you love because you are love. Compassion becomes your default state. Not as a rule, but as a revelation. You begin to see suffering not as a flaw, but as a call. You respond not with judgment, but with gentleness. I remember once watching a man scream at his child in the marketplace years ago. I would have judged him, but this time, I simply whispered a silent prayer for both of them. Why? Because I saw not a cruel man, but a wounded child trapped in an adult's body. This is the vision that awakens at the end of the soul's journey. The ability to see beyond behavior into being. And when you live from that space, you no longer force the world to change. You simply become a presence that invites healing. Chapter 5. Entering the timeless finale. Dear soul, we arrive at the edge of time. Not clock time, not calendar time, but linear perception itself. In this stage, days blur. Past and future collapse into now. You live less by plans, more by guidance. You hear inner nudges, you follow intuition like a compass. You feel your ancestors walking beside you. And strangely, you feel the presence of your future self. This is not fantasy. This is the sacred phenomenon known in mystic circles as timeless integration. Time does not end, you simply step outside of its grip. You become the watcher of your life, even as you fully participate in it. This, my beloved traveler, is a sign that your karmic cycle is closing, and your liberation is near. So, what now? You know the signs. You've felt the shift, you've walked through memory, meaning, and mystery. The soul no longer needs convincing, it needs confirmation. You are the one your ancestors dreamed of. You are the culmination of thousands of lifetimes, and soon you may choose to return no more. But until then, live wisely, speak truthfully, give freely, and walk gently. Because how you live now echoes into eternity. Let us meet once more for the final conversation. And so, we arrive not at an ending, but at the dissolving of the story. The final page is not meant to explain, it is meant to release. You are not your body. You are not your name, you are not your memories, your dreams, or your regrets. You are the awareness watching them all unfold, and now, the awareness itself begins to return. Back into the ocean, back into source. Come with me. Chapter 1. The moment of surrender. There is a moment, often quiet and unannounced, when the soul surrenders fully. It no longer tries to fix. It no longer tries to understand, it simply is. For some, it comes in the final breath. For others, it arrives long before the body is ready to go. This moment of surrender is not weakness, it is the soul finally whispering, I have played this role well, and now, I remember who I truly am. You stop trying to be anyone, you simply melt into being. Chapter 2. The soul leaves gently. Hollywood shows death as something dramatic. But for the awakened soul, it is gentle. It is like slipping off a heavy robe, like drifting from wakefulness into dreamless sleep. In that moment, you may feel a warmth rise from the chest, a hum in the crown of your head. You may see the faces of loved ones, both living and past. You may hear music not made by instruments. You may see light that is not of this world. This is not the end. This is the soul being greeted. One step into the formless. One breath closer to home. Chapter 3. The life review after the departure. There is a moment, outside of time, when the soul is offered a complete remembrance. It's not judgment, it's clarity. You re-experience everything, but this time, you feel not only your own choices, but the impact they had on others. When you hurt, you feel the hurt through them. When you loved, you feel the joy through them. This is not punishment, it is sacred empathy. And in this sacred mirror, the soul learns more than in any school, any temple, or any scripture. You realized every act mattered, every glance, every word, every silence, not because you were being watched, but because you were watching yourself all along. Chapter 4. Meeting the guides after the review. There is reunion. You meet the guides who walked with you, beings of light, beings of love, beings who never left your side. You may call them angels, or ancestors, or simply old friends. They welcome you not with celebration, but with recognition. They say, "Well done, traveler. You remembered," and if your soul has completed its lessons, they offer you a choice. To return, or to remain. To dissolve, or to begin again. There is no pressure, only invitation. You are free. Chapter 5. The return to source. For those whose soul contracts are fulfilled, those who have met the signs, lived in presence, and remembered who they are, there is no need to come back. They enter a space beyond identity, a realm beyond language, not heaven as a place, but home as an essence. It feels like becoming light, not shining but being. There is no fear, no desire, no need, just pure presence. You are not with God, you are within God. You are what God is. There is no more searching, only being. And in this being, all lifetimes dissolve like mist, until only silence remains, the sacred, eternal silence of return. Final reflection. What this journey means. So now, beloved soul, you know the entire path. You have heard the signs. You have walked the teachings. You have remembered what was hidden within you all along. And perhaps you are not afraid anymore. Because fear only arises when we forget that this life is a chapter, not the book. You are not dying, you are becoming whole. You are not ending, you are beginning again in a higher octave. So, breathe deeply, live gently, and when the moment comes, depart with grace. The cycle ends, the wheel pauses. The soul rests in the arms of the infinite. And if this message found you, it means you are already remembering. The light is not coming, it is unfolding from within. So go now, not to seek, but to simply be. And if we do not meet again in this form, know that we will meet in the silence between stars, in the space between lives, in the stillness that birthed the entire universe. You are not alone, you are not forgotten, you are not unfinished, you are complete. Thank you for walking this path. Subscribe for more sacred teachings from the monk. Let this be your space of remembering. Share this with a soul who needs to hear it.